What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gamer Dad channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So many of you know that I'm a huge Division aficionado. I enjoyed the game. I've played a lot of the game, covered the game on YouTube. But at the end of the day, sometimes I always will look at something and say, you know, this, in my opinion, requires some criticism. That's not too often. It's not been too often since Warlords of New York. But I think with this entire talk about the, floor 10, with the summit, I think it really does resonate some more details and at least a lesson that must be learned here. So Ubisoft Massive seem to have basically gone into communicate about their nerf to the floor 10 in TU 16.1. Apparently, here's what they said. Alongside the updates to Picar's holster and Sharpnail Trap in PvP, we've updated the Summit Floor 10 XP. This wasn't supposed to be addressed before TU 16.2, and we apologize for this fix deploying earlier than promised and for the confusion caused by our inconsistent communications. Now, they get dragged here in the comments. I'm not going to go ahead and, read all that. You can go and read it if you want. I think it's just a lesson that needs to be learned because a lot of these things that developers do and a lot of the decisions that are made, I think they have to be weighed very carefully before they're executed. Because sometimes something like the Summit Floor 10, I don't think it really posed any problem to the game. So now them coming back to say that they were sorry for not communicating is also kind of layering on top of the problem. At least they're admitting something, but this is something that has always gone on in the Division community for the longest time. It seems like the developers maybe forget or maybe just think that, the input of the players is probably not valid or valuable to them before they go ahead and make these decisions or make these changes like this. It even spirals out of hand to the point where, we have people smack talking and being rude and vile to other content creators, which is not surprising because there's always been the toxicity in this community. I've had to deal with this since the very first day. Many of us have had to deal with this. And I think some of us were just in a position where we've dealt with it long enough. A lot of these trolls kind of know where to, park their bus. They probably won't bring it to this channel because I always, I tried my best anyways to be cordial, but sometimes I cannot suffer a fool. So you'll probably, find out that they usually hear from me immediately. But at the end of the day, here are a few things that I strongly believe that Ubisoft Massive can do going forward. Whenever you're making a nerf or a change, there's actually an attitude that you can employ to make sure that the nerf or the change is acceptable to your community and your audience. Why? Number one, it says that you're taking ownership of your video game. Number two, it says that you're taking ownership of the fact that you actually did make a mistake in your maybe development cycle or something that you had left for many years. By the way, good night. I mean, can you imagine just waking up to floor 10 like today? It's been there for a long time. But at least it says, you take ownership for what it is that you've done, for how you've set up the game. And knowing that some people have already benefited, from the system that you put in place. And when you nerf it, it's going to short, in quote, some other people who are also looking at this system that you ignored for the longest time. And then now you're going to try to come and rectify. This, in my opinion, is what I think many people are probably rallying against whenever these so-called nerfs and changes are made, is that the community is sometimes ignored and the developers don't seem to deploy these patches in a way that usually acknowledges these inconveniences consistently. Does that make sense? That's pretty much where my argument is. And I take a page from a development team that actually does a very good job in their own deployment of patches. They've always done such a good job in the way that they deploy patches since the game came out. And I cannot necessarily, I can't overestimate how well they deploy their patches. I cannot overestimate how cordial they are as to how they actually present the information to their audiences. And that's from software. I remember the first time I saw an update from them, they literally said, pardon, the changes to these whatever, or, we hope that you are, in a sense, not too affected by these inconveniences. The way they put the language is quite considerate of the player's time. The Division has not really shown that it values the player's time. This is where the consistency has been lacking, it's not really always the consistency in the communication. And I understand they probably want to frame it that way, but I think it's the inconsistency in value in the player's time. So Ubisoft Massive, if you really value the player's time, why not revert the XP back on floor 10? Just as easily as you set it up to be nerfed or whatever, put it back in place. That's a wonderful idea. And I'm sure that's something that will forge even goodwill with your members of the community that are keeping it sane, that are making sure that your game, is being appreciated. Even though you make mistakes, you are almost constantly always, given the benefit of the doubt. At least give this one to your community. Now, I know someone's going to be in the comment section and say, oh, all you want is floor 10, blah, 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 blah. All right. I don't know where I gave you that impression, but it is a boring mode. But at the end of the day, it is one that still brings an aspect to the community and the conversation that the devs are in a position where they're listening to their community and they value their community. So I'll leave this video here. I'll talk to you guys in another one. Thanks so much for watching the video, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon. Peace out.